Hi, it's Peter Schweizer, and welcome to The Drill Down. You know, there is so much tragedy in the world. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, wars around the planet. The word evil gets tossed around a lot, and rightfully so. What is it, and how do we confront it? We're going to talk about that with the one and only Bill O'Reilly. And the co-host of this program, of course, is Eric Eggers. Eric, how are you?
I'm excellent. Very excited to be speaking with Bill. The timing on the release of this book is out of this world, just in terms of the coincidence. It comes out the day before Charlie Kirk's assassination. Also, the Charlie Kirk's assassination happening on Bill O'Reilly's birthday. Just a lot of weird timing things that I'm sure he'll have a very interesting perspective to share with us.
Well, Bill, thanks for joining us. You've got this terrific book out called Confronting Evil. I want to ask you, first of all, could you help us understand and define evil? I think of the Supreme Court justice who was asked to define pornography, and he said, I know it when I see it. And I guess you could kind of say that about evil, but help us understand what is evil and how we can define it.
Well, I knew what evil was when I was 6 years old in the first grade at St. Bridget's School. Because according to the Catholic theology, evil is very simple. It's when one human being hurts another human being on purpose with no remorse. And then, of course, there are varying degrees of evil. But if you go out and you say, I don't like this person, or I want to do this thing, and I know that person's going to be harmed, but I'm going to do it anyway, you're evil. It's an evil act. And, you know, if you read Dante, you'll know there are 9 circles of hell. And obviously on Confronting Evil, my book, I got the worst of the worst. Yeah. But I put evil about 15% of the population worldwide. Hardcore, don't care. They'll hurt you, and they have no remorse whatsoever.
Well, Bill, we want to walk through some of the chapters in the book because it's really amazing, and I think really speaks, even the historical examples, to our contemporary situation. Let me ask you, though, we know that people can be evil, and I think your definition is a very good one. Can ideas or ideologies be evil?
Sure. I mean, if you believe that Jews should be put in ovens and fried to death, but you're not an SS guy doing it, you're still evil because you subscribe to it. So that's a fine line, because sometimes, like the Persian people, they empowered the Ayatollah Khomeini on the cover of my book, and he has killed indirectly hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. Are all the Persian people evil? No. Some of them are naive, some of them are disinterested, whatever it may be. But the fact remains that if evil is not confronted, it will grow more powerful. Eric said something very interesting to open the discussion here. I conceived of this book a year ago when I didn't have any idea about Putin lobbing missiles into Poland or Charlie Kirk being assassinated. And the book comes out, and I wake up the next day, and there's Putin doing an extraordinarily dangerous thing. I mean, this is a gateway to World War III. You attack NATO nations. And then a few hours later, Charlie Kirk, 31 years old, is shot to death in Utah. And one interview said to me, this is just eerie that this would happen one day after the book was released. But it really isn't, because I wrote the book because I knew that evil was on the rise, not only in America, but overseas. And the last time this has happened in modern times, the 1930s, after the Great Depression, when the dictatorships rose. The result of that, 100 million dead in World War II. We're not near that point yet, but I believe Putin would use a nuclear device. He's a psychopath. So there's a real increase in the threat of evil in this world, thus the book.
It's just incredibly bizarre just thinking about it being, your book comes out on Tuesday the 9th. It's your birthday the 10th. Charlie Kirk is assassinated. The next day you're with Donald Trump commemorating the anniversary of 9/11 at Yankee Stadium. So, and the day after your book comes out is the most public example, I think, of evil to happen in the 25 years since 9/11. It is shocking. We want to ask about a lot of the different examples you have because you try to tie them all into today in America. And the first example you have is Caligula. And thinking about, I think the phrase I heard you said is the most powerful of nations collapsed because of evil. And if you don't mind, do you see any connection between the fall of Rome, partly because of the decadence and the celebration of debauchery and kind of the distance that was created between just like normal behaviors and then what Rome elevated? And now you're seeing the reports about the ideology that may have informed the assassin of Charlie Kirk and the potential left embrace and elevation of that. Is that something you've thought about and processed at all?
Well, that's why Caligula leads the book. I mean, the first part of the book is the introduction where I write about October 7th. And I put you right in the town where Hamas invades and exactly what they did second by second, moment by moment. And I wrote that introduction because I wanted people to know right away what I was talking about, and I wanted to be relevant to our situation today. But chapter 1 is Caligula because the same mentality that caused the Roman Empire to fall, the most powerful nation by far in ancient times, has taken some root not only in the USA, but Western Europe, all over the place. And that mentality is that we are willing to tolerate and sometimes encourage conduct that is obviously wrong. Obviously wrong. So if you're going to put a human being in an arena where a lion is going to eat the person and you're having a hot dog in the Coliseum watching it, that's wrong, all right? There's no debate about it. And that mindset in Rome took over. I wrote a book called Killing Jesus at the height of Rome, where Augustus and Tiberius, that was the height of their power. And to see what happened, the deterioration. And that deterioration, if you compare the greatest generation of Americans in the 1940s, that won World War II, to the generation we have now, you got to be worried.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so interesting. I mean, I think you make the point that you have some people that, are extreme libertarians who say, look, if it doesn't affect me directly, immediately, I'm not going to worry about it. You make the case, I think, in that first chapter that, look, decline of civilizations, decline of standards, evil, that will have ramifications on you, even if you think it's something far off in the distance. You also have a chapter on Genghis Khan, which I thought was another very interesting choice. And of course, that immediately brings to mind, and I know you've got Mao in the book as well, brings to mind the situation in China. You went to China, I understand, recently, I think if I've got this right, at the invitation of the CCP, which is something I never quite thought I would see. Bill O'Reilly invited by the CCP to China. What is your assessment of Xi as it relates to China's past, whether that is going way back to Genghis Khan or going to Mao? Is Xi a culmination or a continuation of that tradition?
Well, you're not the only one who was surprised to get an invitation from Beijing. I mean, my God. And we did some research. I'm the only civilian, I think, that's ever been in that position to bring a message from the United States of détente to an enemy. And the reason it happened was YouTube. Because while most social media is banned in China, the Chinese people they don't know what's going on. The government watches me on YouTube all the time. And they know I have a relationship with the president. I've known him for 35 years. They also know that I'm a no BS guy.
Yeah.
And they didn't want a diplomat. They didn't want an ambassador. They wanted somebody to say, if we do this, what will President Trump do? And for 3 hours, I told them. And then I had to debrief the president when I came back. And I told the Chinese up front that I'll come. I paid my own way and everything. I don't do that they pay business. But I said, anything that we say, I have to report back to my government. Okay? And so it went very smoothly. But the question is, Genghis Khan, what he did to the mentality of the Chinese still exists. It's almost akin to Rome and America. So Khan was so fierce and his warriors are so merciless that they went from the Pacific Ocean, Shanghai, if you would, all the way to Hungary, beheading people, just killing people. All right? That mindset terrorized the whole Asian, European continent for centuries. All right? You could argue to this day when you go to see the Great Wall of China, which I did. That was built to keep the Mongol hordes out. And the Chinese people, from the very beginning of their civilization, have always had an under siege mentality. Always. They've never had one day of freedom over there. Not one day have the Chinese people ever been free. They've always been subjugated by somebody else. That mentality of us against everybody else is still in play, and you have to understand it if you want to deal with them. But she is not Mao, even though Mao killed 20 million Chinese and his pictures everywhere. What if some American killed 20 million Americans? You think his picture'd be everywhere? But the Chinese people have no blanket clue what the real origins of the Communist Party are. Xi is a businessman. That's why Trump and Xi, there's a potential of détente. He is an ideologue, but it's more of a control mechanism from the Politburo in China. They know they're not going to make America communist. They know they're not going to do that. They want to have a very prosperous country to keep the 1.5 billion people in line, because those people have no freedoms whatsoever.
So you also have a chapter on drug cartels, and so it's interesting to talk about China in the context of drug cartels. And Bill, in case you didn't know what my job on this podcast is, it's to hype up Peter's books, so he doesn't have to. Now, he hasn't written 19 #1 New York Times bestsellers, but he's done okay. And his last one, called Blood Money, actually talked about the role of fentanyl and how China's sending the fentanyl, and the drug cartels are using the Chinese technology to smuggle things across the border. My question is on the drug cartels, that having been to China, is that something that you think that the Trump administration is aware of, and that obviously factors into these ongoing negotiations with China? They say that they're wanting them to stop the fentanyl trade now, but then China wants them to take the tariffs down. I mean, do you think Trump's capable of making progress, and is that enough of a priority in your opinion? If you say the drug cartels are evil, China's clearly playing a role there, do you think that we're taking that seriously enough as a country?
Well, number one, the drug cartels are evil, and they're allowed to exist because the governments of Venezuela, Honduras, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador are too cowardly to fight them. So we have to. It's almost like ISIS. They're designated terror organizations. We're going to have to take care of them. The only contention in the meeting I had with the Chinese Politburo was over fentanyl. And there's a fascinating story, and I've never told it before. When I was in there, they were saying, we want Donald Trump to come to Beijing. Can you make it happen? I go, no. Okay.
Come on, Bill.
You're lucky you got me. All right? I can't make it happen. He's the president. But I'll tell you what, in order for him to come here, you're going to have to give him something. So then the director of security, the toughest guy in the country, little guy, he looks at me and goes, well, what would that be? And half of them spoke English and half of them had their headphones. And I said, you're going to have to get out of the fentanyl business. Now, this is eye to eye now. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, we're not in the fentanyl business. We just make the precursors. Mm-hmm. And I said, do you really need to do that? Silence. I mean, silence. And I didn't say anything further. I believe that they'll get out of the fentanyl business if they're working for a larger trade agreement that the Beijing government feels is good for them. I think it's just a sideline You know how it is in the communist countries. They all have a sideline making money and all that stuff. That's what I believe it is. Are they invested in it emotionally? No. But the drug cartels themselves, they got to be removed. And I believe that President Trump is on solid constitutional ground, blowing them right off the face of the earth, like he did with Soleimani, like he did with al-Baghdadi, like we did with Osama bin Laden. Blow them off the face of the earth. These are evil people killing millions. And if Sheinbaum won't do it, we'll do it. And whether she likes it or not, too bad.
So just to be clear, Bill, you are then fully in support of using our military assets in Mexico if needed to wipe these guys out.
Absolutely. I would be very reluctant to send infantry in there, special forces, but you don't have to. Everybody knows where these guys are. You just blow the hell out of them. You kill 4 or 5 of them, the rest of them are going to scatter all over the globe. All right? But you got to do it.
Yeah. So I'm interested in talking a little bit about where we are as a country in discussing this word evil, because it seems like it gets tossed around everywhere. And the people that are, profiled in your book, people like Hitler and Stalin, comparisons to Hitler in particular get tossed around all the time. Donald Trump is called Hitler all the time. And I think most people have enough sense to say that's a ridiculous parallel. But is there a residual problem with doing that? In other words, you're not just creating a falsehood. Are there consequences to that? And are we kind of cheapening evil in our country when we're tossing around comparisons like that to regular politicians?
Well, number one, the progressive left that champions that kind of rhetoric has damaged its own credibility, I think, almost beyond repair. And the Charlie Kirk assassination put them over the cliff. The Stephen Kings of the world, the other people, Lawrence Tribe up in Boston, all of these people who try to excuse this heinous assassination, that really damaged the progressive movement. And that, in the end, is going to be Charlie Kirk's main legacy. But as far as lighting a fuse of violence, that's a tough one because a lot of different people do that. And under the First Amendment, it's a line. There's a line. Directly threatening somebody, the Secret Service will come to your door. You know, when I was summoned to see the president last Thursday at Yankee Stadium, the 2 topics were Charlie Kirk and Putin. And, I was sitting next to him, and I could tell that he was very emotional about the Kirk situation because it happened to him. Exactly the same thing. And it was like, a curtain that went up again in this horror. And he genuinely, the guy's got a widow and 2 little kids. Donald Trump doesn't show emotion. But he is an emotional man. And that's what a lot of people don't understand about him. And, we walked through, all right, how are you going to deal with this short-term, long-term? And I don't say what I say to a president. I mean, that's private.
Sure.
But he was very shaken by it. And the situation is that you can't make a correlation. It's not fair to say, well, that person's overheated rhetoric on The View is going to cause some nut to go out and hurt somebody. Very hard to do that. What you can do is condemn a pattern of behavior. And the radical progressive left uses invective, Hitler, fascist, racist, homophobe, uses those things as a policy to marginalize its opposition. That's flat out wrong, and every American should condemn it. That's evil.
That's exactly correct. And by the way, I think that's why when Peter asked earlier, can an idea be evil? I guess just it's being reported now that the shooter I don't know that we have evidence he watched The View, but we do have evidence that, he was living with someone who was transitioning, and so was kind of immersed in this trans culture. I guess, what's your reaction to hearing that? And that would not be the first trans-related shooting to happen in this country in a conservative space. And I mean, you talk about like the left's not able to confront evil. At some point, we know that they weren't even willing to say, hey, those people shouldn't be competing in girls' sports. I mean, what's the next step in that conversation that we need to have as a country?
Well, that's for the prosecutors to decide, not for me. I'm agnostic about that stuff. I don't live in that world of speculation and blame game and all that. I don't do that. I'm a fact-based guy. I'll tell you this. If in the courtroom, if there's a trial, and the alleged assassin is going to plead not guilty, his lawyers are going to try to do the insanity thing. It's not going to work. He'll probably be executed down the line in Utah. But if there is a component there to convince the jury to give him the death penalty, because the jury's got to sign off on that, okay, then the trans thing will be introduced. But until that time, we don't know. So the guy going to be a girl that the alleged assassin was living with is definitely going to have to testify, and already is cooperating with the cops. But I don't know what this guy is saying, okay? So it would be irresponsible for me to kind of guess at it.
We're talking to the one and only Bill O'Reilly, who's got a great new book out called Confronting Evil, top of the bestseller list, of course. You, of course, have a nice chapter on one Vladimir Putin. And it's my sense, Bill, that Vladimir Putin made a massive miscalculation about Donald Trump. My theory is, and I think there's evidence to support this, that Putin came in and thought, okay, Trump's coming in. Trump is willing to consider some kind of reset. He wants a negotiated settlement. And I think he interpreted that as weakness on Trump's part, that he could roll this guy. And so Putin decided to put the pedal to the metal and go all in on the military solution to gain an advantage over the last several months. Donald Trump doesn't like a lot of things. One of the things he doesn't like is somebody trying to make him look bad or push him around. And that has sort of reinvigorated, I think, Donald Trump's opposition to Putin and willingness to go to the mat against this guy. Give me your assessment strategically of where we stand on the situation with Ukraine, and then give me a sense of where you think it's going, because I share your view that Putin is a calculating guy. He's not an ideologue, but he is an evil guy who wants to sort of reconstitute the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. And the question is that kind of guy even capable of negotiating a deal? Well,
in 2017, I did an interview with Donald Trump, the Super Bowl. And in the interview, a very famous clip where I said, how are you going to deal with Putin? He's a killer. And Trump kind of sloughed it off, saying, well, we're not so great ourselves sometimes. But I knew from the very beginning about bad Vlad. In the first term, Trump's first term, he was able to contain Putin. Now, I don't know how he did it exactly one-on-one, but they had a decent relationship in the sense that Putin didn't cause massive trouble. Caused a little bit of trouble, but not massive. But evil changes people. You get worse and worse and worse when you have unlimited power. So Putin is not the same guy now than he was when Trump left office. He's much worse. He's a psychopath. I don't think he lives in the real world, Putin. He enjoys slaughtering women and children with drones. He likes it. He's got 1 million casualties on his own side. Couldn't care less. I believe he would use nukes if he were up against the wall. Now, Trump has realized that. It took him a little while to see the change, all right? But it's there. And now you're in a position where the only thing that's going to moderate that Ukrainian slaughter is if Putin feels that his power is in danger. And there's only one way to do that without military, and that is just to strangle his economy. But the president still has not pulled the trigger, pardon the pun, on that.
Are you optimistic that he will? And
It depends.
I question whether Putin would even want a negotiated settlement, unless, of course, his job is on
He
the line,
doesn't
so to
want
speak.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
It'll have to be forced upon him. But there are a lot of other things in play that people don't know about. China is a big player here behind the scenes. And you don't know what the Chinese are going to do. Chinese turn on Putin. Putin's got a big, big problem. So there's a lot of other stuff. It's not as a linear A leads to B leads to C leads. These news analysts drive me nuts. They don't know anything. I mean, every day I'm listening to these people go, oh my God. It's not that I'm a genius, but I know what's happening. They don't know. Putin doesn't want to make a deal. He wants to take over Ukraine. He wants to be a macho man. He wants to, as you said, be Stalin light. Stalin's his idol. We go through that in Confronting Evil. But he can be forced to do it. But it's going to be very tactical. It's going to require some big surprises.
Yeah, you commented, you talk about like that more than most people, and the fact that you've been asked to go and address the Chinese Politburo, the fact that Donald Trump's seeking your advice, I think does speak to the evolution of your career. You wrote something in your newsletter I thought was just noting. It says, your humble correspondent is walking a tightrope between journalism and policy. I have no choice. My career span is now more than 50 years. I know a lot. It's my responsibility to help my country. I guess, is that something that sort of evolved over time, or did you just wake up one day like, look, I cannot just be a journalist. I have to engage and try to help make a difference? No,
it's life. You know, life presents you with opportunities. And I never in a million years thought I would be in, I'm about as far away from a diplomat as you could possibly get, okay? I never thought I would be involved at this level with very important matters for the United States of America. But if you look at my resume and you look at what I've done, it makes sense. All right? So now we have worldwide technology. Every nation on earth knows who I am. They know I'm sitting next to the President of the United States at Yankee Stadium. They can see the pictures. They know. And the President and I have a very respectful relationship. Again, I don't call him up and say, you should do this, you should. I never do that, ever. When he asks, I give him an honest answer. But my contacts all over the world are unmatched. And I can get in touch with the most important people on the planet who really know what's going on, and they will tell me, a lot of times off the record, but that's all right. So I'm in that position where what I'm doing not for money. I got plenty of money. I don't need any more money. I'm doing it to try to help this country. And one of the things I said to the Chinese was, look, this is doable. And I actually gave them a proposal called a Partnership for Peace and Prosperity. I said, if you just look at this, it's absolutely doable. It doesn't set you back in your internal dealings with your people at all. Let's do it. And that's the point you have to get them to, both sides. You said, okay, doing this, if the United States and China would ally together to tamp down all the other madness in the world, this world would be 1,000% safer place.
Well, we've been talking to Bill O'Reilly, his book, Confronting Evil. Let me just ask you in closing, because of the title of the book, what are the key ingredients to confronting evil? I mean, all the examples you give, some of them are, centuries old, some of them are more modern, but it seems like there are some consistent principles that seem to be applied. Give people some hope and encouragement out there that we have the ingredients within our grasp to confront and defeat evil, whatever form it's going to take.
Well, I can't do that because I don't know what the leadership is going to be going forward. I can tell you that James Buchanan, the worst president of the United States ever, was a coward. And because he was a coward, he allowed evil to rise, and the Civil War took place, the worst thing ever. And that was because the president was a coward. Now, it depends on the leadership of this country, because what evil has to deal with, if it is going to be mitigated, is a very strong presence of good. It sounds trite, but it isn't trite. And you, number one, have to explain to the people what evil is, which is why I wrote the book. And number two, you have to put forth, here's my solution to it. There is a solution to it, solution to everything. And we Americans are very, very good at finding solutions to problems. So if you were looking for an optimistic tone, it would be that we are excellent at finding solutions to problems. But we got to want to do it. The main thing you need to confront evil is courage. And then the second thing is vision. And in lieu of that, evil is going to grow and grow and grow. And this social media is helping it big time.
Just to be clear, I wasn't expecting any optimism when you said 1 out of 6 people in this country in the world are evil. Like, I was like, okay, that's a big number.
Well, they're outnumbered, though. If the good people would just pay attention.
My last question, Bill, and we appreciate the time. This has been, I think, a very informative discussion. Just to like take people into your world. You get the call. They say, hey, Charlie Kirk's been shot. The president wants you to come to Yankee Stadium 9/11. It's an honor. You said when the president, if anybody asks you to come, you do it. But on some level, what's the least convenient part of that for you? I mean, that's like to get there to Yankee Stadium, security, all that stuff. Like, is there any part of it like, oh man, I got to deal with this?
Not really. I mean, I look at it as another assignment because I learned so much that there's no downside for me. But there is a protocol, certainly, and you have to be aware of the protocol. There was in Beijing. I was very aware of the Chinese, how they conduct themselves and what your role is as an outsider in a invitational situation. I'm very, very aware of that. And I respected it. And there was no, arrogance or like strutting around. And I've been known to do that on occasion. With the president, it's almost the same thing. I mean, he's the president. And my job is to assist him if I can. And if Joe Biden had called me, which he didn't because I don't think he could find his cell phone, if he called me, I would have gone too. And I did help Barack Obama with Brothers Keeper. And I helped Bush the Younger with a number of things as well. And I wasn't as powerful back under the Clinton years, but he would confer with me, Bill Clinton. So I do the best I can do. But there's no downside to it. It's an amazing window into history. I mean, I think I've had a life that I could never have imagined when I was an urchin running around the streets of Levittown, that's for sure.
Well, Bill, thanks for the window you've given us with this terrific book and with this interview. Thanks, as always, for making the time. We appreciate it. Thank you, and we thank you, the audience, for tuning in. Until next time, thank you very much.